This is Brew City Lounge.
Answers back. His first bucket of the fourth quarter. And now with 36 for the game.
Yelich sends this one out to center. Bader racing back. He looks up and it is gone. Christian Yelich goes deep.
This podcast is for the number one Bucks fans and Brewers fans in the world and is part of the Lounge Room Network.
Fielder launches. Prince Fielder. Ball game. Giannis got the rebound. Good and one. Wow, he's so strong.
Here's your host, Brandon Snide.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another jam-packed episode of the Brew City Lounge. I am your host, Brandon. You can follow me on Twitter at Wisco_Brandon. Very happy to have you tuning in, whether you're on the live stream or checking the show out wherever you get your podcasts. It's an absolute pleasure and honor to be here talking Milwaukee Bucks and Brewers with you. Hope everyone out there is doing good. Lots to talk about. Unfortunately, the Brewers got steamrolled today, 15-2 against the Cubs. We will get into that later. We'll push that on the back end. Big Bucks win last night, 124-117 over the Philadelphia 76ers. Keep in mind the 76ers are that number one seed currently. So that was a huge win. Bucks got a matchup with them on Saturday. I believe it's Saturday afternoon. And finally, something that kind of raised a little bit of hell on Twitter over the course of, let's see, yesterday and into this morning. Let's put a roof on it. I had a discussion with a friend of mine, actually Juan, the president of this network, talking about putting a roof on stadiums out in primarily the Midwest. I guess you could say everywhere. I mean, I don't know if it's that serious, but I had a discussion with him talking about wanting to put a roof on these stadiums and that have bad weather. And we have seen it in Chicago and Cleveland and Detroit, Minnesota, and they just put all that money into a stadium in Minnesota. So I want to talk about that as well at kind of towards the end of the show. We'll get into that. But I did want to start off today was the Milwaukee Bucks. And holy cow, what a game last night for the Milwaukee Bucks. Now, the final score is not indicative on how dominant this team was last night. I mean, absolutely dominant. They really trailed off in the fourth quarter. They only had 16 points in the fourth quarter. The Bucks did. But my golly, 124-117. I believe at one point prior to halftime, they were shooting almost 70% from the three. I mean, just an absolute domination. And in a game where, I get it, Ben Simmons was hurt. But like Marcus Johnson said on the television analyst, it's not our problem. It wasn't our problem. I'm not gonna put that into an excuse as to why the 76ers got steamrolled. And I say steamrolled because 124-117, that's a pretty big win for the Bucks. And at one point, I think for most part of that game, they were up. I think it got down to 9 at one point, but it was really without a reach for pretty much that whole entire game. And it goes to show you where this team is. I mean, Chris Middleton, amazing game. You know, he had 24 points. I believe at one point he was 5 from 5 from three-pointers. He was absolutely in rhythm all game for whatever reason, still can't dribble. That's a whole nother conversation. So the Middleton haters out there, pretty quiet today. They don't have much to talk about, I guess, as far as his game goes. He had 24 points and 5 assists. And then a guy that, man, I really like. You guys already know how I feel about Drew Holiday. I love Drew Holiday. But Bobby Portis might be one of those underrated signings for the Bucks this past offseason. I mean, at one point he was 5 from 5 from threes. I think he missed one late. So I think he was 5 for 5 for the game. He missed a mid-range jumper. 23 points off the bench, 5 from 5 from threes. Corner threes, and the dude just plays hustle ball, defense, rebounding, scrapping. I mean, he's up there bodying Joel Embiid. I mean, that's what you love to see. What you saw last night from this Milwaukee Bucks team is what this team is capable of when they decide to click together. Now it's going to be a test. They're going to get tested. They're not going to steamroll the 76ers, if they do play them in the playoffs, they're not going to steamroll them every game. Even Saturday is going to be a test. They're not going to just walk in at Pfizer again and win by 20 and shoot 60% from the three. They're going to take a little bit of testing on this team to see where they're at. And that's why games like this, you're 3 weeks out from the playoffs. This is what you want, though. You're going up against the number one seed in the East. You're behind 2.5 games. You want this test. This is a great test prior to getting into these playoffs. Joel Embiid, annoying as hell, but he's a phenomenal player, arguably the MVP. Tobias Harris, former Buck. They always come around to haunt us as Bucks fans. He's a solid piece for that team. He's a reliable piece. He's going to give you 20, 25 points a game. Ben Simmons was hurt, so we'll leave it at what that is. Ben Simmons was out of the game. I think he practiced today, so I'm assuming he's going to be in Saturday's matchup. But what you saw on Saturday, and again, if you're just tuning in, Bucks won 124-117. Welcome to another episode of the Brew City Lounge. So happy to be here with you guys. Excited to talk sports. I'm breaking down the Bucks right now. Thank you for tuning in. If you're on the live stream, thank you guys for tuning in. I want to break down this Bucks team and where I think that they have the ability to get to. Because as a Milwaukee fan, and if you're a Bucks fan, you know that guy, that freak, Giannis Antetokounmpo, they don't grow on trees. We don't get these guys often. I mean, not many teams do. We got to maximize where we are with Giannis. And again, I've said it before on other shows, and I'll say it again. This is the best supporting team that he has had. It's not the best supporting team in the NBA, but as far as Milwaukee goes, this is the best team as a whole that he's had. So watching that game last night, something came to my mind. You know what you're going to get out of Giannis. You're going to get 30 and 10 and probably 8 most nights. Middleton, you're always going to get 17 to 25 points a game, somewhere in that range. He'll give you 5 and 5 on a good night. You kind of know what you're going to get with Drew, although he's been more up lately as far as production. Last night, he didn't have like the best game, but he had a double-double. He had 12 points and 11 assists. It's exactly what I want out of Drew Holiday. I want to see a little bit more scoring, be a little bit more efficient. I mean, that shimmy and shake he had on Joel Embiid had me dying last night. He didn't score the bucket, but it's hilarious. So your big three are set. You know what you got in the big three. Who's the playoff X factor for this team? Who's the one guy outside of the big three that you look at and you're like, okay, if this guy puts on a productive stretch of games, whether it's offensively, defensively, who's the one guy, whether it's a starting rotation outside of the big three or the bench, that has got to be there come playoffs? And I want to get some of your guys' thoughts. You follow us on Twitter at Brew City Pod. Hit us up on Facebook at Brew City Lounge. I'm live on YouTube right now. Drop me a comment. You're a Milwaukee Bucks fan. You think or you hope that this team gets to, whether it's the Eastern Conference Finals or the finals, who's the player out there that just has to show up? We know Giannis has to. We know Chris Middleton has to. Obviously, Drew Holiday. You're not paying these guys max money, super max money to not show up. And watching that game last night, there's a guy that kept sticking out to me. Well, there was two. And in my opinion, in order to get this team to the Eastern Conference Finals or eventually the finals or maybe even, a championship, there's a couple guys, in my opinion, that need to step up. And what I mean by step up, don't play above your talent. what we saw out of Bobby Portis last night is probably the best Bobby Portis that we will see maybe from here on out. I mean, the dude, 5 from 5 from threes, off the bench, scoring 23 points. But I'm going to tell you who my two guys are. And we may have different opinions, and that's okay, because at one point, this team starts to click. They're going to click, and they're not going to lose. They are that good. They are that good offensively and defensively. My playoff X factor, and really, I think from a Milwaukee Bucks fan perspective, the playoffs started. It started yesterday. You got a home and home series, whatever you want to call it, with Philly. You have a chance to jump up 2 games on Philly. Keep in mind, you're only 2.5 games out of that number 1 seed right now. Oh, and just so you know, last week when I broke down the Bucks and I said I didn't want the 3 seed and I think seeding is more important this year, Boston's your 6 seed. So you're looking at a first round matchup as of right now with the Boston Celtics. And I do not want to see Jason Tatum, Marcus Smart in the first round. I just don't. I can't stand them as far as players go. And as a team, they scared me. And I know we've had their numbers for the last few years, but they still are a team that I'm not comfortable seeing in the first round. As of right now, you're looking at the Boston Celtics in the first round if it stays right now. Obviously, there's a lot of games yet to be played. That'll work itself out. But I want to see the Bucks jump into that 1 or 2 seed. I really do. I do not want to see Philly or Brooklyn until we have to. Preferably until the Eastern Conference Finals, which would be getting to the number 1 seed, which they can do. I mean, they're 2.5 games behind. Philly, Brooklyn is beat up. Philly's banged up. Joel Embiid had a shoulder issue yesterday. But to get back to the topic, because I'm distracting myself, and let's talk about who my playoff X factor is. And it's really a guy that you automatically think like, yeah, of course. Like, why wouldn't it be that guy? Brook Lopez. Brook Lopez showed you last night, if he's playing the way that he's capable of playing. Now we know Brook isn't going to get you 10 rebounds or 15 rebounds. He's not that kind of a big. But my playoff X factor is Brook Lopez. And I'll give you 2 of them. I want a starting guy and a bench guy. I want Brook Lopez, and I think it's Brook Lopez. And off the bench, I think it's going to be Bobby Portis. Now, not because Bobby Portis had a huge game last night, but because he's that guy off the bench that kind of provides everything for you, all in one person. He's going to scrap. He's that guy that's going to dive on the floor. He's going to get in people's faces. He's going to grab that rebound. He guarded Joel Embiid last night. He's going to play defense. And, oh, by the way, he dropped 23 points last night. So, Brook Lopez, he comes to play. You know what you're getting defensively out of him. Arguably one of the better defenders as far as the center position goes in the NBA. One of the better help side defenders in the NBA. I think Giannis even said it when he won his Defensive Player of the Year award, that this guy, if it wasn't for Brook Lopez, I'm paraphrasing Giannis, I don't win the Defensive Player of the Year award if it's not for Brook Lopez. And that can be said for team defense because he's always at the right place at the right time. So as far as the starters go, I think the X factor is Brook Lopez. You're not going to get a lot of rebounding, but that's okay. You got Giannis. His average is double digits in rebounds. Drew Holiday's good. You know, you're good with that. But when it comes to running the offense and the way it runs, you could see it early in that game. The fluidity, but with that offense, with Giannis and Drew and Chris, and then you add in Brook hitting, I don't know how many threes he had. Somebody can walk me through it. I mean, or drop a comment on YouTube or on Twitter. Again, at Twitter, on Twitter, at Brew City Pod. Hit me up on there. You can follow me on my personal account at Wisco_Brandon. I don't know how many threes Brooke hit last night, if I can recount, I mean, it was a good 3 or 4 that I vividly remember. When Brooke is on, you can't stop this offense. You're not going to. If Giannis is going to show up, which he shows up every game, hopefully you get a healthy Giannis going forward. You know what you're getting out of Drew. And if we get good Chris, not even like great Chris, just give me like good Chris. Like not really bad. Doesn't have to be Michael Redd, just kind of in between there. If we get good Chris with the MVP and Giannis, the better two-way point guard in Drew Holiday, and then Brooke Lopez gives you 23 points, 20 points, 15 points. Last night he had 16, but it feels like he had more. He hits those big shots, and that's the other thing about Brooke Lopez, and it's how the offense operates. And I don't always agree with Bud's offense. Sometimes I just, again, like, why is Chris Middleton bringing out the ball? Why? And again, maybe he went to Bud and was like, hey, I don't know. Maybe Drew was just like, I like to play off the ball. We don't know. As fans, we like to sit back and speculate and watch the game and be like, oh, why isn't this happening? Well, I mean, there might be something behind the scenes. I'm the same way. I don't understand why Drew Holiday is not bringing up the ball. He does at times, but why is it not happening? Why is the offense not going through Drew Holiday, through Giannis, setting it up for Chris? That's a whole nother topic. But I really think a good Chris Middleton and you add in a solid Brooke Lopez from the starter's standpoint, the offense is unbeatable. You saw it in the first quarter. Even they scored 10 points within like 2 minutes, and Doc Rivers called a timeout. I mean, Giannis has got to develop a mid-range. I know I've alluded to that on the show multiple times. Giannis has to develop a mid-range. I mean, it's imperative that he develops some sort of respectable mid-range. Because when he's out there, you know what you're going to get with Giannis. Every team knows. All they do is back up. They're 6 feet away from you at the top of the key. They are sagging that defense down. They are building the wall, thanks to Toronto. And you're relying on either a blocking call for a foul, or you're relying on guys to hit outside shots. Brooke Lopez can develop that outside shot. He pulls away that defender. That center can't sit in the lane and wait for Giannis to drive. He's got to be out there guarding and fronting Brooke Lopez. You got to respect the shot. If he's not respecting Brooke Lopez is out at the three-point line, you're just adding more defenders into that paint. So my starter is Brooke Lopez. And on the bench, I said Bobby Portis. And again, not because, you know, some of you guys may think like, oh, just because he had a big game. Well, he did have a big game, but Bobby Portis has kind of been doing this all year. I mean, he goes on Twitter and says how much he loves playing for the organization, how much he loves playing for the team, how much he loves Giannis, how much of a leader Drew is. I mean, keep in mind, this guy was in 2 big market cities prior to coming to Milwaukee, lowly Milwaukee, as people like to call it. It was in Chicago. Bulls have been a mess since 98. Excuse me, they had Derrick Rose for like 2 years. So I like Brooke Lopez. I like Bobby Portis as my X factors. We're going to jump into some comments on the YouTube live feed. If you're not on the YouTube live feed, that's okay. Thank you for tuning in wherever you get your podcasts. Follow us on Twitter at Brew City Pod. Jump on Facebook. Give us a like. Give us a follow. Hit me up on Twitter. I have some ridiculous sports takes at Wisco_Brandon. Dale drops in, says Dante and Brooke. I like Dante, but I don't think Dante's like a requirement for this team to win. Dante's a great piece. I love Dante. I was really high on Dante last year going into this year. I really love Dante, but I'm not sure if he's like that piece that you need. Like, okay, if Dante has a bad game, then we're going to go down. Well, it's not necessarily the case. You would like to see Dante be more consistent, hit a lot, hit some more shots, but I love the hustle with Dante. So I can't go wrong with Dante. It's a good pick. I think that there's some more important pieces. My boy Noah drops a comment. Middleton, without a doubt. Drew is a guarantee. Giannis is pretty much a sure thing. Middleton has to be the guy to break loose. And I can't disagree with that at all. He's 100% spot on. And it kind of goes into what I was saying prior. You know what you're getting out of Giannis. You know what you're getting out of Drew Holiday. You want to see a little bit more consistency as far as the scoring efficiency goes, as far as Drew Holiday goes. But Chris Middleton is absolutely the guy that has to be. I mean, as this Bucks team goes, Chris is going to go. If Chris Middleton is off, the Bucks are going to struggle. If Chris Middleton is turning the ball over, they're going to struggle. He's the guy that has to be going. You know what that's what Giannis relies on. You watch this Bucks team and you know Giannis has the ball at the top of the key. You know what's going to happen. You know he's driving to the hoop. You know the defense is going to sag. You know they're going to jam that wall, and you know one of two things are going to happen. Giannis is going to draw a charging foul, which thanks to the NBA referees, he gets 70% of the time, or he's going to kick it out. And you got to rely on those guys to hit the shots. Chris Middleton got paid max money because he hits these shots, and he can hit these shots. So I think that if you got a good Chris Middleton, as Noah says, he has to be the guy. I completely agree with him, because if Middleton is on, you're not stopping this offense. You're not going to stop it. You can't guard them all. That's why it's so important for Giannis to develop a mid-range. It's imperative that he develops some type of respectable shot. But in the meantime, if he doesn't, in the meantime, you got to have guys like Chris Middleton step up and hit those shots. Because the best defender for Philly, the best defender for Brooklyn or Boston, Miami, they're guarding Giannis. They're going to guard Giannis. So Middleton's going to have the advantage. He's got that wide 6'8" frame. He's taller than a lot of two guards that are coming up on him. He's going to have the opportunity to get those shots up. Again, if you missed it, Bucks won big last night against Philly, 124-117, 2.5 games of the 1 seed. Right now, we're just breaking down who your playoff X factors are going into May. May's obviously NBA time, gets a little bit tighter. Playoffs seeding and games and matchups, and they all come into a little bit of fruition here in the month of May coming up. So I think that we kind of have a consensus on who we think is the playoff and who's going to be the X factor going forward. A couple people are dropping in comments saying Brook Lopez, Dante, Thanasty. If you think that Thanasis is an X factor, I mean, he could be. We got a comment from about Thanasis on Twitter. I mean, it's not crazy. It's a very much a possibility. I'm excited about this Bucks team, and I've been excited. I mean, the NBA, kind of sags away in the middle of the season. They kind of lose a lot of luster. You got guys sitting out for injuries, quote unquote, or whatever you want to call it. The NBA starts to pick up late April, early May. So I'm excited about this Bucks team and where they're going forward. Jake drops a comment. It's time to give up on Giannis getting a jump shot. He is who he is. He's in year 8. He will never be a reliable shooter. He will have moments, but it's just not in his game. He will never be a closer, quote unquote. Again, and this is my buddy Jake. I text him all the time. He's not wrong. I don't want him to develop a, Rip Hamilton mid-range jumper. I'm just tired of seeing Giannis catch the ball at the top of the key and all 5 defenders drop into the paint. And then you watch him up there, you know what he's going to do. He's putting his head down, he's dribbling, he's going to the right, he's Euro stepping to his left. One of two things are going to happen. He's drawing a foul, he's getting a foul, offensive foul, or he's kicking it out to somebody. Giannis has the ability to, I don't want him to be Steph Curry. I don't need him to be Reggie Miller. I mean, he's 6'11" with a 7'2" wingspan. Develop a Dr. J hook shot, or something that's got to just be respectable. I mean, As far as the playoff X factors go, we got into it. People left their comments. Again, if you're just tuning in, drop a comment on YouTube. Follow us on Twitter at Brew City Pod. Drop a like and a follow on Facebook at Brew City Lounge. All that support is so much greatly appreciated. We're breaking down playoff X factors, a couple players, and a couple things that you may think need to happen going forward. I dropped in with Brooke and Bobby Portis, and I also kind of added one thinking, what else could this team need? And I think that Giannis developing not the best mid-range, a respectable one. If you drops into that 15, 17 foot range from the hoop, somebody's coming up to respect that. And then that's when he takes advantage and drives to the paint. And most times either finishes or can get the foul called. And then for the love of God, just get your free throws back on track. I know he was out for quite some time and he struggled last night. I don't have the numbers in front of me, but just from the eye test, I can remember him struggling for a few. Bucks win big against Philly, big game on Saturday. Hopefully these little mini series is whatever you want to call them with the COVID schedule this year. I like them, but it's kind of weird. It has a lot of a baseball feel to it. When the Bucks win Thursday night and they won big, well, the score doesn't show big, but they were in the command of that game the whole time. Do they come out Saturday with that same intensity? Or are they like, okay, we won one on Thursday. We'll just kind of go through the motions and see what happens. Because it's a perfect opportunity to jump up 2 games into the Eastern Conference standings. And right now, Brooklyn and Philly are knotted at the top. And I don't know the tiebreaker between the two teams, both sitting at 39 and 20. And the Bucks are 2.5 games behind both of them. With a game against Philly, and I believe Brooklyn's coming up on the schedule. I could be mistaken, but I think that's in the near future. It's a great opportunity. Yeah, the Bucks play the Nets May 2nd and May 4th. So they have another. You could be talking here by May 5th that with a game against Philly on Saturday and 2 games coming up against the Nets, that you're talking about being in command of the 1 seed in a year where we always took it, for granted that the 1 seed was nothing. I think this year is more important than it probably ever has been. So it's going to be it's going to be very interesting to see where this team goes forward as far as who steps up, who doesn't, and then you'll kind of know where this team is. My playoff X factors, again, Brooke Lopez and Bobby Portis. Bobby gives you that energy and that attitude off the bench, and Brooke Lopez provides you pretty much everything. Defense, scoring. I guess he doesn't, not rebounding, but. So again, Bucks win 124-117. They play the Phillies on Saturday, I think afternoon. Tuesday, Ryan Horvat from 1250 AM, The Fan out in Milwaukee. He's going to join me. We'll kind of break down what happened on Saturday. Moving on, though, I do unfortunately want to break into the Brewers. I was super excited to talk about this segment at about 1:00 prior to the Brewers' first pitch against the Cubs today. And I don't know what happened today. If you did watch the game, it was a very short game for me. I think I turned it off in the 4th inning. Just wasn't going to entertain that game. I'm not a fair weather fan, but I had some stuff that I had to do, and I figured, well, if it's 10-0, I think that I can miss a few innings. So, recapping the Brewers from the last time we talked, they sweep the Padres. That was surprising. I'm not going to lie to you. I was fairly surprised. Now, going into that series, I figured West Coast trip, going from cold weather to warm weather, there's probably going to be, some tired legs. I figured that I would be okay with a win one game, take one out of San Diego. You're talking about probably one of the most talented rosters on paper in the NL, maybe the whole major league outside of the Dodgers. But I would have been happy with taking one against the Padres. Instead, you swept them, and you did it in pretty much dominant fashion. I mean, you win game 1, 3-1. Corbin Burns pitched a heck of a game in that series. Game 2, they won 6-0, and then Game 3, they won 4-2. And that was kind of a nail biter at the end with JP Fireeisen coming out and putting the fire out that I forgot who was in before him that completely had no control. So you look at that series as, wow, 3-0, and then you're going against Chicago. Again, sweeping the Padres, to me as a Brewer fan, that was surprising. It's hard to sweep teams no matter who you play. We saw that against Pittsburgh. We're obviously a better team than Pittsburgh, and we dropped 2 out of 3 against Pittsburgh. So it's always tough when you go out on the road and you sweep a team. When you're out on the East Coast, I think that speaks volumes about your team. Obviously, you have the best pitcher in baseball right now with Corbin Burns, and that's something that should come. When he pitches, you think that for the most part you have a chance to win any game that he's in. So that was an amazing series. Very, very, very thrilled with the outcome of those games. Billy McKinney and Jace Peterson and Tyrone Taylor providing some pop, and my goodness, some defense. McKinney with the catch of the year so far, which is so funny because MLB did not tweet out anything about Billy McKinney's catch. And if you missed it, it was the game that they won. I believe it was game 2. They won the game 6-0, but I believe there was 2 guys on base and there was 2 outs. If that drops, that changes that whole game. And that was a game that Corbin Burns also pitched in. He was thrilled with the catch, as everybody was. It was phenomenal. But of course, because it's Milwaukee, we don't, get any love on the national stage. Nobody showed it. Nobody cared. Javi Baez makes a routine ground ball today, and, everybody's ready to lose their mind. So, but with that being said, going into the Chicago series, again, it's tough, and we'll dive into it again on Tuesday and break that series down with Ryan Horvat on Tuesday. But today was tough. And you look at the score and it's 15-2. So obviously it's one-sided. You look at this team and they're 11-8, and you ask yourself, like, why is this team 11-8? Like, what are some things? Sit back in your chair, don't pick up your phone and Google it or look at the stat sheet. Like, why you watch this team, and if you watch them like I do, you don't miss a game. And you're watching this team and you're like, okay, 11-8. Now, if you would have told me at the beginning of the year, hey, you guys will be 11-8. You'll have, a sweep of the Padres. You'll win 2 series against the Cubs, and you'll beat Pittsburgh in a series. I'm sorry, St. Louis in a series. I would probably say you're crazy, and I'll take that. So I'm not being negative about them. Today's hard because I think when you go from sweeping the Padres again, which was a surprise to me, maybe not to you guys. Again, you can let me know what your thoughts are on the Brewers. Drop a comment on the YouTube channel. We are live right now. If you are not listening live, it's perfectly fine. You are on Apple Podcasts or Spotify or Google. I appreciate you dropping in and taking a listen. You can hit us up on Twitter at Brew City Pod, or hit us up on Facebook. Give us a like and a follow at Brew City Lounge. And I'm asking you guys, like, what makes this team? What are your reasons why you think this team is 11-8? Because there's really, in my opinion, probably 2 reasons. And again, I was talking to some friends today who are Cubs fans, and they're rubbing it in my face, and that's fine. Really, I can take it. I give it more than I probably should at times, so I'll take it when it's time. Again, no Yelich, no Kane. You just got Colton Wong back. Now you lose Brett Anderson, which, say what you want about Brett Anderson, he was a really formidable number 5 starter. And you could see what number 5 would have looked like when Josh Lindblom took the mound today. So be thankful for Brett Anderson. I actually got to watch him pitch live last Saturday, and he was phenomenal. I think he went 7 innings. So your injuries are starting to mount up. I mentioned earlier, you got Yelich and Kane, and Juan just came back today. And then Brett Anderson goes out. So today was a tough loss, and the Cubs fans are rubbing it in Brewers fans today, Brewers faces today, and that's okay. Right now we're 4-3 against this team, and I'm okay with where they are right now. Remember when the Brewers won the division in 2018, the Cubs started 8-1 against the Brewers. It's a long season. There's no need for giving up. There's no reason for panicking. Just take it in stride. Get on the YouTube channel. Take a listen on Spotify or Apple, wherever you get your podcast, and let's vent together. Because this was a game where we needed to vent. Because it was just one of those. Yeah, you had Robertson out there pitching 3 innings today. No earned runs either. Better than Josh Lindblom. So again, I'm asking you guys, what are your reasons? What do you think the reason is this team is 11-8? Because the schedule is really tough. I mean, to start the year, you're going up against the Twins. Okay, that's the AL Central Division winners for, I believe, the last few years. You open up against the Twins. Then you play the Chicago Cubs in Chicago. You win 2 out of 3 there. Then you play St. Louis Cardinals at Busch Stadium. Always tough to go to St. Louis and win. You win 2 out of 3. Then you come back home against the Cubs and you win 2 out of 3. Keep in mind that these series is against the Cubs, Cardinals, and Cubs to start the year. You did not have Yelich. Kane went out. Colton Wong was out. I mean, you're getting big contributions from Billy McKinney and Jace Peterson, Tyrone Taylor. So what are your opinions on why this team is 11-8? Because whether they got their butts handed them today, which they absolutely did, 11-8 is a good start. It's a solid start, especially when half your core pieces of your team are out. And I believe Craig Counsell was quoted today by Tom Haudricourt of the Journal Sentinel that Yelich will not be available tomorrow. It's more than likely he probably sits for the rest of the series and maybe even the next series. They do have a daunting schedule of 17 games in a row. So that's where they're at with Yelich. Again, we seem to always find tough spots in the season where we get mounting of injuries. And it's unfortunately happening at a time where the Cubs are peaking early. Their bats are absolutely on fire. They've won 4 in a row. So I'm going to give you my reasons as why I think this team is 11-8. And I want yours as well. Drop a comment on the YouTube live stream. I believe, obviously, I think that the number one reason is pretty easy, in my opinion. I mean, you look at this team, you turn on the news, you turn on Twitter or Facebook. A big reason, probably the main reason that this team is 11-8, starting pitching. And it goes without saying. It's the best starting pitching minus today, but I don't know if you would count today. We'll take today out of it. That this team is 11-8. You got Corbin Burns, Woodruff, Freddie Peralta, even Adrian Hauser's provided 2 really good starts. Starting pitching is obviously the main reason that this team is 11-8. They're keeping them in games, and the offense has been stale. And unfortunately, the offense has been really stale at a lot of part of the season early on. And again, it's early, and it's only April, and the saying goes, the bats don't wake up till May or June, whatever it is. This team's struggling offensively. But it kind of is what we deal with as Brewers fans. We always have either really good offenses where they're just Braun, Fielder, Hardy, Corey Hart, or Grandal, or Moose, and Yelich. And then our starting pitching sucks. Now this year, its starting pitching is phenomenal, and the offense is struggling. Scoring with runners in scoring position, hitting. I mean, it's terrible. Sub 200. Your starting pitching right now is the main reason that you're 11-8. And how long? And I asked this a couple of weeks ago when I had Tim Dillard on. How long can this starting pitching sustain this? Is this something? We're sitting here watching the Milwaukee Brewers, and we're watching Corbin Burns go out there and throw 6-7 innings, not giving up a run, only allowing 2 hits. Woodruff only giving up 2 runs a game. Peralta's under 2 runs a game. Corbin Burns isn't even at 1, barely at half. Is this something that the offense can catch up with? Is this pitching sustainable? Is this something that's going to happen throughout the year? Are they that good? Or Or are they just hot right now going into the early part of the season? So the question out there is, why do you think that this team is 11-8? And I don't want like an answer like, well, because they won 11 games. Well, okay. Why do they have a winning record? Starting pitching is the main reason. And I think the number 2 reason, although the bullpen has struggled, and when I talk about struggle, I'm talking about Lindblom, over 10 ERA. Rasmussen, 8.59. Perdomo, 8.92. Yardley, 5.63. Devin Williams is over 6. So I'm not talking about the bullpen as a whole right now. What I'm talking about, the bullpen at the right time. You saw it against that game 3 against the San Diego Padres. Bases loaded, no outs. You're up 4-2, and you're thinking, well, there goes that sweep. And instead, you bring in JP Fireeisen, and he just knocks him out. 3. Boom. 1, 2, 3. 3 strikeouts. So the bullpen is hitting their peak at the right time. They struggle from time to time. Every bullpen's going to go through their ups and downs, but the bullpen is when they're winning, when the Brewers are winning, their bullpen is coming in at the right time. Josh Hader struggled against that game, 3 against the Padres as well. Gave up a double with 2 outs, but he shut it down right away. They're coming up and they're providing clutch moments at the right time. So a big reason I think that this Brewers team, it has a winning record, is sitting on top of the NL Central, is starting pitching. Obviously, that kind of goes without saying. It's a historic start for this team. Corbin Burns is having a historic start, period. 40 strikeouts with no walks. I mean, it's unheard of. The guy that the award's named after, Cy Young, didn't even do that. I mean, he's having a phenomenal start. And just a side note, Corbin Burns was this good last year. AKA he was better than Trevor Bauer. He's just not Trevor Bauer. He's not strutting off the mound and doing weird stuff, so he doesn't get the credit and the attention that Trevor Bauer gets. But he's been this good since last year. I mean, Corbin Burns is really, really good. He's untouchable right now. So starting pitching and the bullpen at the right time. The offense has been horrible. There's been times where they've showed up. There's been times where they dropped 6 runs in an inning against Chicago last week. But for the most part, you are 11-8 because you're starting pitching in your bullpen at the right time. Could you imagine right now where this team would be if their starting pitching wasn't shutting teams down? With this offense struggling to get anything across the plate? Again, credit to Kyle Hendricks today. He's always tough against the Brewers. He's a Brewer killer. He always is good. Going into the game, his ERA was over 6. And of course, shuts the Brewers down. It's usually how it goes. But I want your guys' thoughts on why this Brewers team has a winning record right now. Because if you look at it, it's not a really good team right now. Offensively, they're terrible. Bullpen ERAs are absolutely out of this world. Sky high. Josh Lindblom came in and gave batting practice today. God only knows what his ERA is going up to after today. Keston here couldn't hit a beach ball if it was sitting in front of him. Yelich is hurt. Locane is hurt. Colton Wong had a good game coming back off the IL. That was encouraging to see. This team, once it puts it together, it's kind of like the Milwaukee Bucks. Like, they're all there. Like, the talent is all there. You got the MVP from 2 years ago. You got Gold Glovers all throughout this infield and outfield. You got the best defensive center fielding tandem that you've ever probably had. The starting pitching and the bullpen at the right time has been, in my opinion, two main reasons why this team has a winning record. Jake drops a comment, says pitching and depth. all these injuries and haven't really missed a beat. Totally agree. He's absolutely right. Absolutely right. I mean, when you're talking about, before the season, I said, if I were to tell you Billy McKinney and Jace Peterson and Tyrone Taylor would have really big moments in the series against the Padres, you would probably look at me and think like, why? Why are they having big games against a marquee team when you got Yelich and Juan and Locaine? Like, why? And the reason is because obviously there's injuries, and credit to David Stearns. And when I talked to Vinny Rotino last week, Tuesday, I talked to him on Tuesday. I asked him, this team, obviously David Stearns did something right in the offseason. Not that he hasn't done anything right, but I mean, he obviously didn't do anything wrong by picking up these guys. That Tyrone Taylor's been a part of the farm system for a while. Jace Peterson and Billy McKinney, and nobody even heard of these guys, really. I mean, if you're a baseball nut, sure, you know who they are. But as a casual fan, you're like, Billy what? Jace who? And now you're talking about big-time contributions at the early part of the season. So Jake's absolutely right when he drops in and says pitching and depth. We all know pitching. We can all agree as a group that pitching is the main reason that this team is over 500. I mean, it's the main reason. And I hope to God that Keston here can get out of it. Whatever funk he's in, whatever he's got going on mentally, he's got some personal stuff going on with his mom. Our thoughts are out with him. I believe most of you probably already know his mom was diagnosed, I think, with an illness. So he just saw her for the first time. I believe it was against the Padres. So maybe that's what's going on with him. I don't know. I don't want to speculate to anybody's personal life, but the guy's got to figure it out. He's an integral part of this team. I mean, without Keston here in this lineup, his team's going to struggle offensively. He's in there to help Yelich. He's in there to protect Yelich. And you can't have him going 0 for 4, 0 for 3, 1 for 4. He's got to be a big part of this offense. So again, brings me back to my point. The reason that this Brewers team is 11-8, over 500. Again, they are top of the division. The Cubs are starting to get a little streaky. They've won 4 in a row. They swept the Mets. Absolutely took care of the Brewers today. It's a game we all can put behind us. We all don't want to talk about it anymore. It's going to happen. Guess what? It'll probably happen a few more times throughout the year. And the Brewers are going to beat a team 15-3, 15-4, 12-3. That's baseball. Again, it's a marathon, not a sprint. We all like to get worked up with one win, and I know Cubs fans are on Twitter and they're celebrating, and I believe they're planning a parade because they won today. And Javi Baez is El Margo again because he made a catch with his glove, and I'm happy for them. The city of Chicago obviously needs some positivity in the sports world. The Bears aren't giving them any help. So again, a tough win, tough loss today for the Brewers. They dropped down to drop a game 15-2. They dropped down to 11-8 against the Cubs again on Saturday and Sunday. And I'm going to lead into my next segment, and I'm going to tell you this is going to help me. So when I saw the Brewers schedule, and I thought a Friday game at 1:20. And that caught me off guard. And I looked at the schedule. I'm like, oh, it's the Cubs. And then I thought, why are we playing at an afternoon game on a Friday? Start, it's a game 3 of a series. That's usually how it goes. You play an afternoon game. The Brewers did that out in San Diego. Why are we playing the first game of a series on a Friday at 1:00 in the afternoon? Because Wrigley Field is a dump. That's why. There absolutely is. It's a dump. I mean, and this brings me into my next segment. Again, Brewers drop a big game against the Cubs. They lose 15-2. We move on to tomorrow. I believe it's Freddie Peralta tomorrow, if I'm not mistaken, how the rotation works. If you guys are on the YouTube stream, drop me a comment. Let me know who's starting tomorrow. Follow the podcast on Twitter at Brew City Pod. Drop a like and a follow on Facebook at Brew City Lounge. All that is appreciated. You can hit me up on Twitter at Wisco_Brandon. But a segment into my next topic and my final topic, and a controversial one, is Wrigley Field. And it's historic, and I respect that. It's kind of like what it is to, Lambeau Field in the baseball atmosphere. There's a lot of history tied into that. But I want to get your guys' thoughts because I ran a poll on Twitter, again, on Twitter at Brew City Pod. And I said, when you start off a baseball season, and it always starts in late March, early May. And I said, man, it's really hard for these teams in Chicago and Minnesota, Detroit, Pittsburgh, Cincinnati. Like, why is it against the rules that we can't all have or think about putting a retractable roof on all the stadiums? Hashtag put a roof on it. And it's a movement I'm trying to get moving. And I ran a poll on my Twitter, on the podcast Twitter handle at Brew City Pod. And I said, given the weather, again, it snowed in Milwaukee on Thursday. Snowed. And I'm not talking about it snowed and it was just gone within a few minutes. No, it covered the roads. It snowed, and it snows like that every year in the spring in Wisconsin and Illinois, Minnesota, Detroit. We saw the home opener with Detroit. Miggy didn't even know he hit a home run. I mean, that's how bad it was. So I started a Twitter poll, and I said, given the weather in Milwaukee, given that we have a roof, a retractable roof, do you think it's out of the question? And again, you could say MLB wide. I kind of just said the Midwest area where it has that really odd spring of cold weather and wet weather. And in October and late September, it has really cold weather. So I put up the poll and I said, given the weather, given what we have in Milwaukee with the retractable roof, is it out of the question that every team in that area should have a retractable roof? And then I got a lot of feedback, and it was 50-50 for a while. You got the baseball purists who say, no, it's meant to be played outside. It has to be outside. I don't care if you're in snow knee deep. You play baseball outside. Okay. Baseball wasn't meant to be played in the snow. Baseball wasn't meant to be played in the rain. Baseball also isn't meant to be played when it's negative. I shouldn't say negative, but when it's 30 degrees out. It's just not meant to be played. We, growing up as kids, we all played baseball in summer. It's a summer sport. It's a reason it starts in spring and ends in early fall. And now you got the World Series ending in like November for whatever weird reason. So I put the poll out. I knew it was going to get a lot of attraction. I knew it was going to draw a really good argument. We started a group chat with our network at Lounge Room Net. Follow them on Twitter. And I thought, this is going to be fun because I think that teams with the four seasons weather that we have in the Midwest, Minnesota, Wisconsin, Illinois, Michigan, and Pennsylvania. I mean, is it really out of the question to say like, hey, put a retractable roof on your stadium? Because out of all the professional sports, baseball has more delays and cancellations than any other sport. Not even close. And in 2018, this is just a side note. In 2018, 25 games were postponed due to weather in the first 3 weeks. And now you're asking these teams to, okay, we need you to play 40 games in 42 days. Play 20 games in 22 days. Well, put a roof on it. Like AmFam Field set the standard for you guys in 2001. We don't have cancellations or delays. There's been one in 2019 when a thunderstorm popped up and they weren't prepared for it. One cancellation. You're talking about one game canceled in almost 20 years or delayed. I'm tired. I'm not turning on the TV and turning on ESPN Sunday Night Baseball to watch a 3-hour rain delay in Pittsburgh because it happens every year in Pittsburgh. When the Brewers go to Pittsburgh, one of those nights you're not watching the game. There's going to be a 2-hour rain delay, and there's going to be a cancellation. It's going to happen. I mean, you have retractable roofs right now in Houston, Florida, Seattle, Texas. Why in Texas? Why in Florida? Because people don't want to sit there in 120-degree temperatures and watch baseball. It's not enjoyable. Just like going to a game and sitting in the snow is not enjoyable. If I want to watch a game in the snow, I go to Lambeau Field in December. I don't like domes. Like, I don't think that, like what they have down at, I believe it's in Tampa Bay, where it's a dome. I don't believe that it should be like that. But what's wrong with having a retractable roof? Because AmFam Field, you get the best of both worlds. If it's 75 and sunny out, you got the roof open. It's great. You're outside. Outside. It opens. If it's rainy, if it's cold, if it's snowing, which, again, it happens. We all saw it, us that live in Wisconsin. Thursday, it snowed. Oh, we can close the roof and the game goes on. And the money that you spent to buy those tickets, you're going to get your money's worth. And again, look at it from the players' aspect. For the most part, I won't side with the players because I think that they get enough. Obviously, they're compensated very well. And, they have everything kind of handed to them for the most part. So I usually don't side with the players with a lot of things. But when you look into it, in 2018 with the Chicago Cubs, this is no excuse. I'm glad that they lost the division to the Milwaukee Brewers. I hate that city. They played 40 games in 42 days because of weather delays at Wrigley and wherever else they were playing. And again, weather delays are going to happen. It's going to rain. It's going to be foggy. There's going to be issues. But if you can avoid it, why not avoid it? Why would I build a stadium in Minnesota, of all places, colder than most places in the major leagues as far as teams and cities go, and you're going to put billions of dollars into Target Field and then be like, well, we like the skyline, so we don't want a roof. It's not taking away the skyline. All the retractable roof does is, if there is bad weather or cold weather, it prevents that so that the game goes on. So I'm not sitting there with a scarf rolled around my neck because I'm trying to watch a baseball game in 35-degree weather. Now, I'm not asking every city, every team, or MLB to be like, this needs to be mandatory. No, I don't. It doesn't need to be mandatory. But it's just an idea. Like, it's not a crazy idea that we can go to these cities and be like, hey, Chicago doesn't even, their big thing is like all the skyline and the bleachers. Like, they've built around that thing so much. First off, stop putting a Band-Aid on a bullet wound. Okay. Like, the Wrigley Field is a dump. It is. If you've ever been there, you know what I'm talking about. And if you haven't been there, don't even bother going. The ceiling will fall on you. There's cracks throughout the sidewalk. They've renovated it, but it's a dump. And I know there's history poured into that. They tore down Yankee Stadium. They can tear down Yankee Stadium. They can tear down any stadium. So my argument is that I think that these teams should put a retractable roof on their stadiums to avoid these weather delays, weather cancellations, travel jams, playing 40 games in 42 days. What are some of your guys' thoughts? What are some of your thoughts about why you think, or maybe you don't think, that we should have a retractable roof on some of these teams in these cities? Because the poll I ran was 60-40. 60% of the people said that there should be a roof. 40% said there should not be a roof. I was obviously in the group that said there should be a roof. And again, it's not a permanent roof. And this is the argument I had with some guys on Twitter. I'm not taking your baseball field out your field outdoors and closing it into a dome. I'm just saying, add a piece to your stadium that closes when weather comes, when rain or snow or cold weather is coming, so that these games are not only enjoyable, but the quality and the product of the game doesn't side away. Juan drops in a comment, says no to roofs in the stadiums. He's against it. I'm for it. Noah drops a comment. It's the same arguments we had about a net up in front to protect the fans from foul balls. People hated it. I get it. It's new, but it makes sense. There's zero argument against the roof. Zero. Thank you. Thank you. It's exactly what I'm saying. What's your argument against the roof? You're not taking away, it's a retractable roof. I'm not telling you to close in Wrigley Field. I'm not telling you to close in, you name it, guaranteed rate down in Chicago. I'm not asking you to close in Target Field. Put a roof on there so that when it's snowing, when it's raining, when it's 30 degrees and you got a playoff game or a big game, that you're not losing anything from that product, from that quality of that game, because you're also putting your players at risk. Nobody should be swinging a bat when it's 30 degrees outside or trying to grip a ball and throw it 90 miles an hour. It's a safety hazard. It's a safety concern on that part of it. Again, the sport of baseball has had more rain delays, more cancellations than any other sport combined. You got retractable roofs in Houston, Florida, Seattle, Texas. Like, if people in Texas are putting a retractable roof on, there's a reason why. Obviously, it gets extremely hot down there. They don't want to watch a game when it's 120 degrees. Same thing in Florida. Seattle, it rains. Why put a retractable roof in Seattle? To avoid weather delays. Guess what else happens in the Midwest? It rains. It snows. It's cold. It's the same concept out here that it is down there. They have their reasons for a retractable roof, and we have ours. Milwaukee was ahead of the game in 2001 when they had it in, when they put it in. And it was one of the best things that anybody could have done for that ballpark. Juan drops in a comment, says it's pointless. Why spend all the money? Rainouts don't happen that often. Yes, they do. And he's a Chicago White Sox fan, and he knows there was I believe it was 2018. It wasn't even going to, it didn't even rain yet. It was in the forecast that it was going to rain. And they canceled the game between the Cubs and the Brewers because they thought it was going to rain. Guess what happens if you don't have a roof? If you have a roof, I'm sorry. You play the game. You close it up, and the game goes on. Now, then the other argument is people are like, wow, do you put football in a dome? There is football teams in domes. That's fine. I'm not against football dome stadiums in the NFL. It's not the end of the world. It is what it is. I prefer to be outside with football, but guess what? Football was invented. Became what it is today because of the weather. You play football in the rain, in the mud, in the snow, in the cold. That's what the game is meant to be. Baseball is not meant to be played in snow. It's just not. There was cancellations already this year because of snow. And it happens every year. We always get this weather in the spring. Chicago, Milwaukee, Minnesota, Detroit, Cincinnati had, I don't know if you guys saw it on Twitter, the relief pitcher for the Reds, the umpire threw like 5 or 6 baseballs. He threw them all to the side. They're all soaking wet. It's taking away from the game. It's a simple concept. It's a simple argument. Everybody's like, no, or yes, you're one side or the other. But at the same time, there's a lot that goes into it when you have a roof, a retractable roof. I'm not asking everybody to close in their stadiums. Jake drops a comment, says, while I agree, best case I see happening is Midwest teams starting a very road heavy schedule on the West and East Coast. But he does agree. Thank you, Jake. Keep dropping those comments. Hit us up on YouTube. Hit us up on Twitter at Brew City Pod, on Facebook at Brew City Lounge. A couple more minutes here with this discussion, then we're going to wrap up today's episode. It's not crazy to think. Just sit there and think about it, though. It's all I'm asking you guys to do. Just sit there and think. Now, baseball tickets are expensive, as is everything. You buy a ticket, or you say you buy a couple for you and your family, and you spend $150. And then you buy stuff at the stadium to eat and drink. And then you grab a couple of beers. Your son or daughter wants a t-shirt at the pro shop or a baseball hat. You're up to, like, let's say $300-$400. You get to your seats. You watch the first inning. Great game. Kershaw's pitching a gem or whoever you want to throw in there. There comes that rain cloud. It's in the second inning now, going into the third, and there comes the rain. And now all the money you just spent, hard-earned money at a time where the world is right now, now your money that you just spent doesn't go to waste. You still get to keep that merchandise you got, but your experience at the ballpark is gone. I know that when I'm going to AmFam Field, if I pay money to go to AmFam Field, side note, really fun announcement coming up. Stay tuned on Twitter with the show and what's going on. But I know that when I spend money at AmFam Field, if I go to buy tickets and I go to buy food and I'm tailgating, I'm going there and it's going to happen. I know that the game's not going to get canceled. I know it's going to go on. The show's going to go on. The game will be played, and that will be it. These teams, and I'm telling you guys, I'm a Brewers fan. Whenever we go to Pittsburgh, there is always a game or two that gets delayed because of weather. Noah drops in a comment, what about playoff or World Series games? Well, nothing changes with that. You can't control, if the Dodgers get to the World Series, and again, it was the Dodgers in Tampa Bay last year. One team has the dome. I think last year they played at a neutral site, but normally it would be, at LA or at Tampa. When it comes to that stuff, like you can't really do much about that. But if the Cubs are in the World Series, St. Louis, Milwaukee or Minnesota or Detroit, I mean, you're talking about when the playoffs are going on in that part of the year. If any one of those teams in the Midwest are in the playoffs, you're talking about early October. Keep in mind, early October, the NFL season's halfway over already. It's cold. It's not fun to play baseball. So again, it's not the craziest thing I've brought up. It's not the craziest thing I've talked about. There'll be plenty more discussion with that, and there'll be more to dive into. I just kind of wanted some of your guys' thoughts on, whether you think that the stadium should have, or stadiums in the area of the Midwest and should have a retractable roof or not. It's not as crazy as when you think about it. Break it all down. Make a list, pros and cons. And it's not as crazy as you think about it. But with that being said, that will do it for today's episode. It was an awesome, fun episode. I appreciate all the interaction on the YouTube live feed. If you didn't get a chance to catch out the live feed, don't worry. I will have all the episodes posted up on all the platforms, Apple, Spotify, wherever you get your podcasts. They will be up there probably by tonight. So give it a follow, give it a download. Let me know what you guys think. Leave a review. I'm always open to criticism. Doing a solo podcast. It's only my 5th one so far. So I'm learning as we go. We're learning as a group. I appreciate you guys tuning in. Again, Brewers play tomorrow. I believe the Bucks play tomorrow. I don't have the times in front of me. I think the Bucks are in the afternoon. I can tell you what the Bucks are at 2:30. And then I believe the Brewers are on as well at 1:20. So you got the Bucks and the Brewers. All these games against the Cubs are in the middle of the day. So Bucks and Brewers going in tomorrow. Both big games for both teams. You want to see the Brewers get a win. You want to see the Brewers get a win at Chicago, at least one out of that series. And then obviously the Bucks, you want to see another win against Philly, grab another game ahead in those standings. But that will do it for today's show. Again, I'm your host, Brandon. Please follow me on Twitter at Wisco_Brandon. You can also hit the podcast page up on Twitter at Brew City Pod. Also give us a like and a follow on Facebook at Brew City Lounge. Again, if you didn't catch a live feed, don't worry. Don't forget to subscribe to wherever you get your podcasts, Apple, Google, Spotify. They're all up there. Drop a like, drop a comment, drop a review, whatever you guys can do. All the support is greatly appreciated. I will be back on Tuesday. Again, Tuesday, Ryan Horvat from 12:50 a.m. The Fan will be joining me. We will break down the Brewers and Cubs series, also dive into the Bucks and Philly game from Saturday. Again, that will be on Tuesday. I am your host, Brandon. I appreciate you guys. Thank you for tuning in, and I will talk to you soon. Later. Hey guys, as always, thank you so much for tuning into the Brew City Lounge. If you need to catch up all your Bucks and Brewers, please tune into our social media pages. Follow us on Twitter and Facebook at Brew City Pod. Also, don't forget, subscribe and download wherever you get your podcasts, Apple, Spotify, Google, and more. Thanks so much.